Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you wake up in medieval Europe before sunrise. The air bites at your skin. Your stomach is empty. Your children are awake too. They're watching you in silence, not crying, not speaking, because they already know. Today, your family's survival depends on one thing. Not meat, not wine, just bread. A single loaf. Here's what nobody tells you about the Middle Ages. Bread wasn't just food. It was survival. It was power. And sometimes, the thin line between peace and chaos. To understand medieval life, you have to forget modern kitchens, supermarkets, and instant food delivery. Just you, your family, and the desperate hope that this year's harvest won't fail. For much of the time between the 5th and 15th centuries, most people in Europe lived just one bad harvest away from disaster. The meat was rare. Sugar was a luxury. Vegetables came and went with the seasons. But bread was constant. From kings to peasants, monks to soldiers, bread sat at the center of every table, or replaced the table entirely. It fed families, paid workers, calmed cities, and defined social class. Let's start with a number most people never expect. The average medieval peasant consumed between 2 and 3 pounds of bread every single day. Let that sink in for a moment. Today, bread is a side, a convenience, something that holds our sandwich together. But for medieval people, bread wasn't a side at all. It was the meal. Everything else was optional. This wasn't overeating. It wasn't comfort. It was a calculation. Bread had to replace the calories of meat, fat, and protein most people never touched. Without bread, the body weakened quickly. Work slowed, bodies failed, and survival was no longer counted in years, but in weeks. Bread wasn't chosen because people loved it. It was chosen because without it, they died. Grain could be stored for months. It survived cold winters, long wars, and unpredictable weather. When vegetables failed and animals died, grain still stood a chance, but the reality was very different. Most medieval people didn't eat white bread. That was for the elite. The poor ate dark, dense loaves, made from rye, barley, and oats, sometimes mixed with peas or beans. Heavy bread, sourdough bread, bread that filled the stomach and quieted hunger pains, because hunger was the real enemy, and hunger showed no mercy to anyone. But bread did more than feed bodies. It controlled behavior. Because when bread disappeared, people didn't stay quiet. In medieval cities, the price of bread was watched like a hawk. Bakers were regulated. Weights were inspected. Some towns even punished bakers publicly if they cheated, because light bread meant hungry citizens, and hungry citizens meant riots. Some rulers lowered bread prices, not because of kindness. They were afraid. They understood something dangerous. An empty bakery was more dangerous than an enemy army. Bread riots didn't start with noise. They started with silence, with mothers waiting, and ovens that stayed cold. History shows this again and again. When bread prices rose, crowds gathered. When grain stores emptied, anger followed. Kings feared bread shortages more than invading armies. Bread was politics you could eat. Here's a question historians still debate. Why did bread become the food instead of meat or dairy? One theory is efficiency. Grain fed more people per acre than livestock ever could. Another theory points to religion, where bread symbolized life, sacrifice, and order. But there's a darker idea too. Bread kept people just full enough to survive, but not powerful enough to rebel easily. A fed population obeys. A starving one explodes. So was bread nourishment or control? Maybe both. For medieval society, bread wasn't optional. It was calculated, measured, protected. Monasteries recorded grain yields carefully. Castles stockpiled flour for sieges. Armies marched on bread rations, not meat. A soldier without bread was a liability. A city without bread was doomed. And yet, despite all this importance, the bread was fragile. One storm, one fungus, one failed harvest, and everything collapsed. During famines, bread changed. Flour was stretched with tree bark, seeds, even ground bones. People ate what looked like bread, but wasn't. They still called it bread, because hope mattered as many as calories. Imagine a mother breaking a loaf into equal pieces, knowing it won't be enough. Imagine a child learning hunger as a normal feeling. Imagine bread not as comfort, but as a countdown. Every slice meant one more day survived. Every empty basket meant fear. And here's another twist. Bread showed your place in society instantly. White bread meant wealth. Brown bread meant labor. Burnt bread meant desperation. You didn't need words to know who mattered. You just looked at their loaf. So when we think of medieval wars, plagues, and kings, we often miss the quiet truth. Civilizations didn't rise on swords alone. They rose and fell on bread. Today, bread sits casually on our tables, cheap, abundant, almost invisible. But in the medieval world, bread was life itself. It fed bodies, ruled societies, and decided who survived the winter. So here's the question to leave you with. If bread controlled medieval history so deeply, what everyday thing controls our world today without us even noticing?